Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel quite a few times before. Now, these guys are a very well established and very well respected name within their local craft beer scene over in the US, and they have been kind of spreading further afield. When they featured on the channel before, they have mostly been part of collaboration beers that I've reviewed, but over the last year or two I've been able to try some of their own beer, which has been really quite nice. But the one that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have had from this brewery before. It's one that I know they can do very well, and this beer specifically is one that I've wanted to try from these guys for quite some time. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head over to the US, like I said. We are going to go to New York State in the northeast of the country, New York City, and to be specific, Brooklyn. So that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Other Half Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Cheddar. It comes in at 7.9% ABV, and this is a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, the first solo brewery beer review that I did from these guys was the Broccoli, and I did that one when I was over in the US just about 2 years ago now. But they've got quite a few beers that are just kind of called random things like this, like different types of food and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm a big lover of cheese, and that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to try this one. And it's also got a very interesting hop bill as well, which we'll come to a little bit later on. But yeah, this is another beer that I picked up at the wonderful Gur Beer in the one mall in Chimshatchui in Kowloon here in Hong Kong. They seem to get the Other Half stuff pretty regularly, which is nice, and they're coming in at pretty good prices now actually. So yeah, you probably will see a few more Other Half reviews on the channel going forward. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying more from these guys. But yeah, a 7.9% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Other Half Brewing Company in Brooklyn, New York over in the US. Let's get started with this one then. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Other Half Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the American playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite regularly, of course, because we do get a very good selection of American beer here in Hong Kong. And do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Other Half Brewing Company once again. So, Other Half Brewing, as I've mentioned here already, are based in Brooklyn in New York, and the company was founded back in 2014 by Samuel Richardson, Matt Monahan, and Andrew Berman. So these guys had quite an interesting background actually, but one that was very well suited to founding their own brewery. Matt had worked as a line cook and in kitchens for a number of years, and he got really into home brewing over the years while working in the kind of hospitality sector, and so he decided to go for it and make brewing his main career. Samuel, on the other hand, had studied food science in Oregon with a special focus on fermentation science, and he'd worked at various other breweries before getting involved in the Other Half project. Andrew, on the other hand, has a background in the restaurant industry, and he was a partner in a number of different restaurants in different places. But these days, Matt manages the business side of the brewery, while Samuel is the brewery operations manager and also involved in the recipe development of the beers. And the brewery have grown very quickly over the last few years, and their original tap room can be found on Center Street in Brooklyn. And if you check out my Out and About video playlist that I did, you'll see that I went to visit that one, and that was pretty awesome to go and visit these guys and try their beers on site. So make sure you check out that video. But over the last few years, they've opened up a number of new spaces. In 2018, they purchased the former brewery of Nedlow Brewing in East Bloomfield in Rochester in New York State, and this has allowed them to get their beers further afield than ever before, and they were also able to start a sour beer program at that site as well. This site is actually located on an 8-acre farm, and they experiment there with wild yeasts and spontaneous fermentation. Like I said, they've been diversifying a little bit over the last few years. But 2020 saw them open a new location in Domino Park in Williamsburg, and then another one in Washington DC on Oakey Street in the Ivy City neighbourhood, which boasts another production facility and also 20 taps. The following year in 2021, they opened up new tap rooms at the Rockefeller Center in New York and in Philadelphia, and they also opened up a pop-up location at Seneca One in Buffalo, New York, which was then expanded to a full tap room and restaurant in 2023. But later that year in November, they opened another bar in the renovated Ramova Theatre over in Chicago, which, as we know, is a very good beer city in the US. And then in January of 2024, they purchased Young Lion Brewing's facility in Canandaigua in New York at the Pinnacle North Complex. So yeah, as you can see, these guys have expanded a hell of a lot over the last few years. The production capacity has picked up as well, and that's meant that the beers can spread further over the world, such as to here in Hong Kong. But as of June 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 1,820 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But like I said to you, they're very well known for these New England hazy IPAs, but I do hope we can get some of the other styles from them going forward. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Other Half Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, or you can check out the Untappd page to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is the end of your history section of this video. Let's go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So like I said to you earlier, this one comes in at 7.9% ABV. It's a New England hazy, imperial double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. This one is hopped with Citra and Equinox from the US and Kohatu and Waiiti from New Zealand. Citra is 14% alpha acid. It's going to give you a lot of juicy mango kind of character and a good little bit of lemon limey note in a New England IPA. Equinox, I think, is about 14% alpha acid as well. It used to be known as Equinox, right enough, and it gives you quite a kind of zesty, limey character from what I remember. Kohatu is an interesting one. That's quite low alpha acid, about 7 or 8%, and it gives you a lot of kind of pineapple and lime from what I remember as well. Waiiti is a very low alpha acid hop, and that gives you quite a lot of apricot. It's about 3% alpha acid or something like that. But yeah, the New Zealand hops are among my favourites. So yeah, if you, I've not had Kohatu and Waiiti in a New England IPA for quite some time, so this one should be quite interesting. I've not had Equinox in quite a wee while either. But yeah, that's all the technical stuff about the beer. As you can see, this one is a 473 milliliter can, 1 North American pint, plain silver top on it, and you can see the blocks of cheddar cheese just around it too. But there you can see, if we bring that up to the camera, you can see the Other Half symbol there. And of course on this side of the can, I'm not sure how well you can see that because there's a little bit of condensation on this one because it's sweating in the warmth here of Hong Kong. But yeah, you can see it tells you just a little bit about the beer too. But it says an imperial IPA brewed with hand-selected blend of hops, giving notes of lychee, green tropical fruits, and mild citrus. So yeah, this should be quite an interesting one, I have to say. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. The Cheddar, 7.9% ABV from Other Half Brewing Company, originally from Brooklyn in New York. It doesn't say on the can actually where this one was produced, but yeah, this should be pretty nice. So I think that will do for the moment. We've poured maybe about 75% of the beer out and into the glass, and that'll allow us to have a look at its appearance and its aroma before we taste the thing. So yeah, before the head disappears on this one, you can see that it's poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of creamy coloured head there. You can see some medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid there, and then it gets a little bit soapier the further up that you go. There's a nice little kind of ring sitting there around the edge of the glass, but yeah, the head is just fading away to be a very sort of thin foamy layer. But yeah, you've got a nice kind of bright yellow mango juice colour on this one. I always like comparing the New England IPA's appearances just to different fruit juices, because that really is just what they remind me of. But yeah, this one looks a bit like a kind of mango fruit juice. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to the IPA style category. But yeah, the level of haze in this one is kind of what you would expect from an 8% New England double. It's not the soupiest and gloopiest one that I've come across right enough in this part of the spectrum, but it looks pretty damn good. Remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use, and that of course varies from beer to beer, brewery to brewery, and so on. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. The head has just faded away quite a bit there, and there's just a wee ring around the edge of the glass. But appearance wise, there's nothing really surprising about this beer when you consider what style this one is. So yeah, it looks pretty good, I have to say. So let's go on then and have a little look at the aroma of this one. I'm really curious to see what this beer is going to be like. Like I said, I've been wanting to try this particular one for quite some time, but mainly just because of the name, in honesty. Yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this is a really quite soft and kind of juicy leaning New England IPA, but it gives you everything you'd want from the style. You've got that good little bit of bready backbone in there, some nice kind of floral and sort of grassy notes to it as well, and then yeah, a lovely kind of juicy note there. But you can feel this one gets more and more citrusy the more that you smell of it, and when you've got Kohatu and Equinaut in there, it kind of makes sense. The Equinaut's really sticking out of the aroma for me with this one. But yeah, it smells great. So for me, when it comes to New England IPAs, you've got kind of 6 elements to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of these beers. So you've got the more kind of farmhousey, yeasty type character, and the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those 2 elements are a little bit more common in the New England brewed New England IPAs, because the style of course started as a farmhouse IPA, but as it's moved to other places and evolved, the focus is a little bit more on wheaty bitiness, barley malt bread, oaty creaminess, and the sweeter side of things. So for me, the other half beers tend to be like quite smooth and oaty, and yeah, they've usually got a good little bit of barley malt character to them as well, and I think this one is going to be no exception to that. But the other thing I would say about this is that it doesn't smell quite as thick, if that at all makes sense, in comparison to the other half beers that I've had in recent times. But yeah, it does smell really nice. Let's just break down the aroma and describe it for you that wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, as you very often get, is a sort of fresh white bready bread crust. There's a little bit of woody character in there, some nice Jacob's cream crackery notes above that, and yeah, these are things that you always expect. This beer, you do get a little bit more out of that, I think. The more that you smell of it, that note comes to the fore, just that little bit more. Yeah, I like that with this one for sure. Yeah, but on top of that, you've got a little touch of like a sweeter wholemeal brown bready character coming out of this one. There's a lot of fresh white bready note in there as well. As I've often said on the channel, for me, American malts tend to be a little bit sweeter and not quite as dry as their European counterparts. Of course, I got into craft beer drinking mostly European stuff, so you start to notice these subtleties over the years. But yeah, the bready character that comes out of a lot of these American beers for me is quite sweet by comparison. But yeah, on top of that, you can smell the wheaty character coming out of the beer. So for me, that comes across as like quite a dense wheaty white bread, if you like, and at the back of the nose you get a little bit of bitiness out of it, but for the most part it is quite smooth. And again, I would say that North American wheat is smoother than European wheat. European wheat has more bitiness to it, and that's just down to chemistry. You know, different soil profiles, different water profiles are going to affect the chemistry of your plant. So wherever you grow something, if you grow the same hop, Cascade for example, they grow in Colorado, Yakima in Washington, and also in New Zealand, so they do taste slightly different depending on where you grow them. But yeah, the wheaty character in this one, I think the more that you smell of the beer, the more that you get the wheaty bitiness coming out of this one, but for the most part it's actually pretty smooth. But like I said, the other half IPAs for me, the New England ones at least, they tend to be more oaty leaning on the New England IPA spectrum. So with this beer, you certainly get quite a little bit of oaty creaminess out of this one. You can smell a little touch of the dryness from the oats coming out of the beer as well. But yeah, that goes together really nicely too. The oats in these New England IPAs can be a fairly good indicator of how fresh your IPA is. Essentially, the fresher the beer is, the creamier the oats smell and taste, and the older the beer is, the drier they are. But the other thing to remember is that New England, North American oats, are a little bit more kind of porridgey than European oats. I think European oats are that little bit more kind of creamy. So that effect that I mentioned about the creaminess is more noticeable, I think, in European brewed New England IPAs than it is in North American ones. But yeah, the oaty creaminess is there. There's a little slight touch of sweetness to this one, a wee bit of that Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch and a little bit of a biscuity note, and you do get a little hint of that almost Skittles like aroma pushing its way out of the beer as well. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really quite nice in that regard. Now, the yeasty side of the beer comes out at the back of the nose, and for me, the yeasty character in this one is quite white bready leaning. It's got a little touch of, kind of brown bread at its core, but for the most part, it's like a fresh white bready character that comes out of this beer. And then, yeah, you've also got, on top of that, you've also got just a little bit more kind of a crackery, woody sort of thing too. So a wee bit of a more farmhousey white bread from the yeasty side of things. But I think we've said everything we need to about the malty and yeasty side of this beer. Let's look at the hoppy side of things. So as I've said in many New England IPA reviews before, or many IPA reviews before, there are three types of hoppings that you can do when it comes to brewing an IPA. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you the vast majority of your bitterness and a deeper, danker character. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the latter half hour of your wort boiler, so that gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it's going to give you a very bright green component. Then dry hopping takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that one is all about flavour and aroma, and again it gives you a very bright green component. West Coast IPAs tend to use all three, which is why they're deeper, danker, and more sort of oily in their flavour, also more bitter. And then yeah, you've got the New England hazy IPAs. They rely mostly on late addition and dry hopping as well. But yeah, I think with this one, I get the impression from this beer, from the smoothness of it, I think there might be a bit of cryo oil or something in here as well, probably with the Citra. I'm not sure if the other hops have been put into cryo oil yet, but yeah, I think there's certainly some cryo Citra in this, and you can usually tell that there's been lupulin products used in the beer if the green component is very, very smooth. But yeah, for me, with this beer, you get a little touch of earthiness out of it, but for the most part, your green component is very floral and very kind of aromatic, and you've got a nice wee bit of a kind of grassy zestiness coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, I think the grassy zestiness in this one's maybe going to come from the Equinaut, in all honesty. But yeah, your green component isn't anything surprising in this one. So let's have a wee look at the fruity side of the beer then, to round off our look at the aroma. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of this beer is kind of what you would expect if you know these hops. The Equinaut is jumping out at me a little bit, and the limey character, I think because I've not had Equinaut in quite some time, so it's just that little bit more noticeable. But yeah, with this one, the Citra's really obvious in here. The Citra's giving you the kind of tropical notes along with the Waiiti and the Kohatu as well. But yeah, I think there's quite a little bit of passion fruit in there, lots and lots of very ripe, bright, juicy mango. That mango's going to come from the Citra, of course. Then you've got a really nice, like, apricot-y type character, I think, from the Waiiti as well. Sorry, my computer screen's flashing. I'm just going to turn it off. But yeah, the Waiiti in this one, you can smell that soft but kind of oily apricot in there. And there's a wee bit of pineapple coming out of it from the Kohatu as well. So for me, the tropical notes, when you take the aroma in a bit more deeply, the aroma really leans toward that more tropical side of things. But at the front of the nose, yeah, you certainly get that nice limey kind of character from the Kohatu and from the Equinaut in particular. So yeah, mostly a tropical leaning New England IPA. This one, I have to say, I don't agree with their aroma notes. that are on the side of the can there, just in terms of what fruits are coming out of it. But yeah, we might get something different in the flavour. But aroma-wise, this beer comes across very, very nicely. So as I always say, take a bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Cheddar, a 7.9% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Other Half Brewing Company, originally from Brooklyn in New York. This is a beer I've wanted to try for quite some time. So let's do this. Sláinte, skål, cheers. Oh, nice. Right. I'm going to say straight away, this one's quite interesting because when you first take it in, it's really, really juicy. And then as you go into the aftertaste with it, it becomes like a little bit smoother and a little bit more dry. So yeah, I'm getting a lot of kind of dryness and smoothness from the, I think mostly the barley malt in this one is what's giving you this one. But I think this is definitely one of the drier hazy IPAs that I can think of that I've had from Other Half. I would be very curious to see the full brew sheet of this one, just to see exactly what they're doing. But yeah, let's just have another taste of it now that we've poured everything into the glass, because there could have been a little bit of sedimentation with this one. We'll just see. But yeah, it's very juicy and very sweet in the beginning, and that flavour lingers there, and then you can feel from the back of your palate the whole thing just kind of dries out the further forward that you go. Although the fruitiness lingers there for quite some time. Yeah, this is interesting, I have to say that. Does the way the flavours come out in this one does diverge a little bit in comparison with what you would expect from the aroma. So yeah, let me just break the flavour of this beer down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. We'll go to that middle third of your palate then. So the backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. As you move further forward on that, there's a little bit more of a, yeah, as you go further forward on that, there's a little bit more of a kind of woody character coming out of the beer, and yeah, that kind of lingers into the aftertaste. But on top of the white bready bread crust, you do get a little bit of kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of character coming out of this one, and you get that little bit of kind of grainy and crackery sort of character lingering into the aftertaste with the beer, and that gives you a wee bit of dryness. So above those layers, pardon me, above those layers, you get a little bit of a kind of wholemeal, brown bready type character coming out of the beer. So yeah, that one, yeah, the way that that goes together is quite nice too, because it does, you know, in fairness, it does give the beer just a little touch more sweetness into the aftertaste, but it also kind of boosts the kind of grainy character that the beer has. But then the next layer up is the fluffier white bready layer from the barley malt, and yeah, that does have a degree of sweetness to it, but there's a little bit of the kind of typical dryness coming out of that part of the beer as well. So yeah, I like how that one kind of pieces together in this case. But yeah, on top of that, you can feel the wheaty side of the beer, so you get that more dense, wheaty, white bready character coming out of this one. So yeah, so for me, the wheaty white bready characters, I've often said sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So with the wheaty layer of the beer, you can feel a little bit more bitiness further back on the palate, but it is of course a little bit smoother further forward. And on top of the wheaty layer, kind of down the middle line of your tongue, you can feel the oats in this one. But yeah, the oats at the centre of your palate are a little bit more creamy, and then as you move out toward the as you move further out toward the edges of the middle third of your palate in this beer, you get a little bit more dryness out of the oat as well. So yeah, that's quite interesting. But in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel that little circle there, which has a wee bit of like Werther's original butter candy butterscotch coming out of it, and then it's got a wee touch of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit just around the edge of it there. But I think with that we've said everything that we need to about the middle third of your palate with this beer. It goes together pretty nicely, I have to say. Yeah, so I think we can go to the back third of your palate, and as I've often said, the middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate are going to give you very similar flavours, but they'll come out just at different intensities, and that's no exception in this particular beer. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the kind of brown bread in the base, the barley malt white bread in the middle, then the more dense and slightly bitey wheaty character sitting on top of that. But yeah, the base of that, the base of that front third of that back third of your palate, sorry, you've got the white bready bread crust in there, which is noticeably more dry, and then on top of that, you've got the cracker. You can feel the brown bready layer in there, which feels a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy, of course, and drier. And then you can say the same about the white bready layer from the barley malt above that, and you can feel the more dense wheaty character, wheaty white bread just on top of that. And that wheat there does give you a good little bit of bitiness, and you can also feel the kind of creaminess from the oats coming out of this one too. So yeah, the way that that kind of pieces together in this beer, I think is very nice. So that gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I like that with this one. Let's focus on the yeasty side of things with this beer then to round off the back third of your palate. So at its core, at its core, the yeasty side of this beer, it's got a more dense brown bready character at the core, and then surrounding that it's got a little bit more of a kind of fresh, it's got a little bit more of a kind of grainy and fresh white bready character, and then you've got a little bit of toasted bread crust around the edge there. So yeah, the yeasty character on this one does give the beer a little bit of a kind of farmhousey bready character, and it also kind of boosts the overall dryness of the beer into the aftertaste too, I would say. But definitely, yeah, back third of your palate you can feel the flavour is taller, then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So malty and yeasty side of this one is pretty nice. The oatiness, I think the oatiness does thicken up a wee bit more the more that you drink of this beer, and you get that little bit of hoppy bitterness, but overall it does go together very nicely, I have to say. But let's focus now on the hoppy side of the beer then. So green component first. In the back corners of the palate you do have a little touch of earthiness coming out of this one. As you move further forward along the side of the palate there, you get a little bit of pine resin in the back notes. So you get a little bit of pine resin in the background of the beer there, and then as you move further forward from that, there's a good little bit of there's a little bit of a more kind of floral aromatic note coming out of this one. It's got a wee bit of spice to it, but it's quite nice and quite oily as well. But then around the front curve of your tongue it's a little bit lighter and more grassy and kind of oily in a sense, and it's got a good little bit of zesty note coming out of it. But yeah, the way that the green component in this beer goes together is quite nice. The smoothness does indicate there's a bit of cryo oil in here, I think, probably the citra, but yeah, you can feel the kind of spiciness from the pellets, from what I suspect, from the other hops, I suspect. But I don't think we need to say anything more about the green component. So let's round off the flavour section of this video then with a wee look at the front third of your palate and the fruitiness. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. You've got the brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, then the more dense wheaty white bread on top, and the base of that front third of your palate is the white bready bread crust, the Jacob's cream cracker, brown bread, white bread, the denser wheaty character, and the more sort of oaty side of things. And then on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So the way that that goes together, I think, is really nice too. So let's focus on the fruity part. So it's got a really nice balance, this one, between the tropical side of things and the more limey type character. So at the back of that front 30 palate, on the fruity part, you can feel there's a nice little bit of you you have a nice little bit of kind of passion fruit underneath. There's maybe a little touch of grapefruit there actually, which is going to come from the citrus. So I think the grapefruit's giving you that wee bit of citra. But yeah, as you move further forward from that, there's passion fruit underneath and the juicy mango on top. That's going to come from the that's going to come from the citra rather than anything else. And as you move toward the middle of that front third of your palate, you can feel the softer apricot in there underneath from the Waiti and the juicier pineapple from the Kohatu sitting on top of it. But yeah, as you go to the front half of that front third of your palate, it's all about the limey characteristics. So yeah, for me, the limey side of things, I think, is the limey side of things in this one for me is it's actually got almost a little bit of spice to it. So I can see why they say lychee in this. Citra can give you a little bit of lychee, but yeah, you can feel that quite zesty, limey character, which I think is going to come mostly from the equinot. But like I said earlier, Kohatu can give you a little bit of limey note too. But I always found Kohatu to be more pineapple-y rather than anything else. But yeah, the limey notes kind of linger there into the aftertaste along with the grassiness and the floral side of the beer. So yeah, the things that linger into the aftertaste for me are the kind of bread crusty notes, the dryness of the beer, and then yeah, that limey and sort of grassy and floral character to the beer. So yeah, the way that all pieces together in this one, I think, is very, very nice. But yeah, flavour-wise, this beer is really, really nice. Yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about the flavour of this beer. So a slightly more grainy and brown bready and limey leaning New England IPA, but it's very sweet in the beginning, and as I say, it dries out the further into the aftertaste that you go. But let's round off this review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer is top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth in this one. Like I say, the beer, it's actually got a little bit of a kind of oiliness to it. It's kind of wet and slightly oily, but it's not overly creamy, and it does give you that wee bit of dryness into the aftertaste too, which I find quite interesting. In terms of the IBU count with this beer, I would say that it's probably about 40-ish IBUs. The bitterness does build up a little bit into the aftertaste, but overall it's the green component's quite smooth, and then yeah, you've got a bit of graininess from the malt base underneath, a little bit of smoothness on top of that, and then a little touch of a very slight sweetness on top, and then yeah, your fruity side of the beer. It's quite tropical in the beginning, but into the aftertaste it's more of the limey sort of zestiness that comes out of the beer. So yeah, the way that everything goes together in this one, I think, is really nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, really interesting beer, this one. Certainly a change of pace from the other half beers that I've had in recent times, but I like it. I think this one does go together very, very nicely. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This is the Cheddar, a 7.9%. Yeah, a 7.9% New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Other Half Brewing in Brooklyn, New York, over in the US. Really cool to do another solo brewery beer review involving these guys, and we'll see what we can do with them going forward. But until the next time, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Other Half Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the near future. But meantime, check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very shortly. Ciao just now.